One of the good ideas you can do is you can photo enlarge them a little bit bigger, photo enlarge them down, and you'll have many choices then about making your little dashboard. When you finally do get the shape and size you want, you can decide, gee, I want bigger instruments, smaller, larger, whatever. Now, the other thing too is you don't have to spend $4. You can usually Xerox copy even in a hardware store for 15 cents a copy. So if you're going to make copies, run over to a Staples kind of store or whatever and make up a bunch of instruments. That would be step 2. And I do have a bunch of them here. Now, step 3, unfortunately, I can't show on video because we have a friend, and I will not mention any names. He borrowed, I have a little box, it's like a shoe box, and every time I come across something I think would look good in a Canopy, I put it in that box. So all during the year, and it's been 3 or 4 years since I did a real Canopy, I have a nice box. Geez, it's got all kind of little pilot helmets and things from HO trains and macaroni ends. Actually, some of the things that make good parts for a Canopy, Jim Damarel, if you look back on the videos, if you go to where they sell car parts, you'll see all different kind of pilots and drivers and steering wheels and things that belong in a car but really do look good in a model plane. Tom Niebuhr has a nice idea. One of the nice ideas I've seen him do, he cuts out the canopy shape and he takes velvet and glues velvet right to the outside, so when you look into the canopy you see a nice velvet look. Ted Fancher had a great idea. He had this big sleek looking canopy years ago, maybe he still has it. And he took this reflective stuff that changes color in the sun and ran a big piece in there. I thought that was cool as hell. The metal flake looks good in a canopy. Typically canopies are an anti-glare black, the front part, because a pilot doesn't want to see the sun reflecting off aluminum or shiny Imron paint or whatever. So maybe having said all this and knowing all this, we can make up a kind of a realistic, nice canopy. And I'm going to do this on the tape, and I'm going to try to do it step by step so that somebody, and obviously maybe somebody will be interested in this tape not only as a part of building Strega, but just to see they want to put a canopy in an SV11 or in a ballerina or whatever. Some of the cute little ways of doing this. I documented this on the Nobler video, and I remember Bill Rich calling me up and saying, man, every plane I have from now on I'll have a cool canopy. One of the other things you'll need, I don't have it up on the table right now, is some aluminum tubing and some brass tubing. Making rivet heads, some little tiny paint brushes. What I like to use, I have all this different colored paper to make, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, because as you start a canopy, you go to an art supply store and get a bunch of paper. I also like to use sandpaper when you want to show the texture in a real cockpit, the rug, or you want to simulate a rug, or you want to simulate what would be a non-slip surface. Sandpaper works great. The stick you can usually make, if you're going to make a stick instead of a wheel, you can make it out of a toothpick. And we'll try to show it. The Red Baron was like that. Some of the cockpits I've seen, detail in cockpits, is just unbelievable. The criteria here, I don't want any loose parts that halfway through the season are going to come flying out or be upside down or whatever. And I will not have a pilot. I have looked around for pilots for the last 6 months and have not found one that I think fits the shape and the size that I like. The problem here with a real pilot is, if you make a pilot the scale size, his feet would be, you know, where the motor is. It just doesn't look right. And he has a head like an egg. I don't like that look either. It looks like Humpty Dumpty in the cockpit. So sometimes if you can't simulate it the way you really think it'll look good, the best thing to do is do what I'm doing and just make a cockpit. Now without a pilot, you get to see more of the detail. So we're going to be carving up a chair, a seat belt, a lot of rivet heads, a lot of little simulated lightning holes everywhere, and we'll just do this as we get into it. We'll do it. Also, one of the tricks you might want to have handy is if you go down to a store that sells these plastic models, they make a set of all different olive drab color paints with a darker, lighter green, brown, for military camouflage. Now that's the perfect thing to simulate aluminum oxide in a canopy. Those paints, when you mix them with talcum powder, because they're flat, they tend to really simulate what a real canopy would look like. And of course Sidewinder has that, by the way. If you go back to the Sidewinder videos and see all the work I did on a canopy, wow, cool as hell. I thought that canopy was just super. So anyway, rather than spend a lot more time on this, step one of this whole deal is, and I'll show this, this is why I brought all the fuselage parts out. I want to tape the fuselage together. This is why you want to have the rudder done first. I want to kind of tape the whole fuselage together with masking tape. One of the mistakes you can make when you do this is if you do this in midair and you put the box in, it spreads the block. Then you go to put the block back on and you can't get it to sit just right. So if you do all your engineering with the block taped in place, and I know this is starting to sound like a long dissertation, but I think the information you can use, what I'm really hoping is somebody can watch this video and on their first or second or even, you know, whatever, they can come up with a really nice, really efficient, effective looking canopy. Now what this does, I want to tape this on first of all. I want to tape all the blocks on. I get to see the look that I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is that Reno Air Racer look. And of course I have all the Reno books here, the Strega books and everything. But if you put everything together, it'll give you a much better, I think anyway, a much better chance of achieving the look that you think you want. And I just tape this together on a temporary basis just to hold it in place. This is why I like, one of the reasons I like to have the rudder all in position, everything ready to go, because then I can sit on a side view, I can take it outside. One of the things I try to do, and it's raining today, I won't get to do it today, but we'll be doing it before the week's over. I take it, march off 70 feet, lay it on a lawn chair or whatever, and from 70 feet away, take a look at that side view. Do you like that side view? Does it look chunky? Does it look fat? Does it look skinny? Does it look like your wife in a nude? Whatever. You don't want to have something that... You're going to live with that side view for 2,500 flights or 3,000 flights. You sure don't want to have something that, you know, that looks like Willie the Whale or Muffy the Muppet or something. Anyway, I'll finish assembling this all off video. I'm going to put the rudder on, the cowling, tape everything up, and then try to... Step one will be to locate the canopy. Make a decision on where the canopy is going to be. Now from this, you see I have the fuselage all taped together here. And this is one of the most critical things. I'm doing this on the shop floor. I've propped it up with a taffender tank here because I want to get that side view look. And I want to decide exactly where that canopy, if it's too far back, is going to look kind of hokey. If it's too far forward, it's going to look like a saber jet, you know, or it's going to look like something, a pumpkin or something I don't like. So I'm going to spend about the next 15 or 20 minutes. I'll cut out the canopy and try to position it so that I'm happy with where it is on the fuselage. And that is a super critical thing. Even being off by 1/4 of an inch, it's not going to look attractive. I just wanted to show the instruments up close here. These are the ones Jeff Stiefel made for me. These are Xerox copies and they're perfectly okay. Now here's the other thing. I picked up 5 SIG canopies for under $10 here. And this way I'll have one to test, one to check the dye on and see if, who knows, if I'm going to dye it. A nice little one if I want to make a real, and you never know this until you go and do all this, one that looks like a chipmunk or a Mustang or whatever. But each one of these will make a different look. The canopy, because it's a focal point on a plane, can be make a tremendous difference in the way a plane looks just for $1.50's worth of canopy. So anyway, I'm going to start by cutting the first one down and try to get it in a position that I'm hopefully going to like. Now step one is you have to cut the ridge off. I try to cut it off even with the bottom, and then it's going to have to come tapering up in the front and tapering up in the back, much like installing a piece of sheetrock. And you got to keep picking away at the hard spots. A brand new pair of scissors seems to be the way to go here. Now that I've said that, they'll probably split the canopy. It's a little easier to do it with scissors than it is with a razor blade. But you know, a canopy really does, if you're willing to pay the weight and the labor penalty, it really does add a little dimension to a plane that, unless you're going to go fly in Lubbock, Texas or something where it's 1,000 degrees, Really is a nice touch to have on a plane. Now after I get this trimmed off, the final trim in here I'll try to do on camera, because that is really one of the pain in the necks of model aviation. Now if you lay this up here, you notice it only hits in the front and back. And now I have to start creating that lip in the front till this starts to sit down into the shape that I want it to be. Now a good way to get a rough estimate on this is I just put a piece of 1/8 inch tape on the canopy, and I'm looking at it to see if I've copied that curve pretty well. With the tape on, of course you can move it, and you're probably not going to get this right on the first shot anyway. So with that tape on there, now you can cut and start nipping away at it. It's probably going to take 6-7 times before you get that curve just right. At the same time, you can be thinking, hey, now I have to make a commitment. Where is this canopy going to be? You know, you either have to turn this into a Mustang or whatever right now. Now see how nice that fits on there now? Alright, we've got it, well, close anyway. Real close. We could pull the tape off. Now the other question is, how much of the canopy do you want to stick up? We could take and put 1/4 inch tape around this whole thing and let it all sit down just a little bit more. I want to take just a little bit more off. So again, what I'll do is I'll take the 1/8 inch tape, strip off a piece. I know I have the angle pretty much now the way I want it. Now I can just, by using the tape. Now the reason it's important to get this right, because we're going to bury this canopy. We're going to dig a little ditch into the top block, and this top block is only maybe 3/32 of an inch thick. It's really thin right now, and we want to get it right so it sticks down into the top block by you know, 1/16 of an inch or so. We want to get some epoxy right in there. Epoxy this right in. Now see, by doing this, I'm going to actually lower the canopy 1/8 of an inch. I'll cut this off camera. This will take 5 minutes to cut, but having this tape on here allows you to get a feel for just exactly where this is going to go. Alright, we just try to figure out the position we want to have the canopy on, get all the looks, settle on a position, and we're going to start making a permanent mark here for where we want to set this canopy into the top block. Now this is one of the things, having that Jeff Stifle invention here to hold the body is handy right now. By the way, I wasted the whole afternoon yesterday carving a pumpkin. Somewhere in this video I'll show that pumpkin. But tonight I'm having the guys over the house for the class, for the get-together, pizza party, or whatever you want to call it. What I'm going to do, out behind the house, it's all dark, I'm going to put it right out there with a candle in it. Anyway, back to airplanes. I want to get the final mark on where this canopy is going to be, and I'll make that decision just by, you saw yesterday I went back and forth with this. I want to get a final set on where the canopy is, and then trace out the outline so I know exactly where that canopy is going to be. Now I'm just taking this tape on and off. I want to get a little bit more taken off the front of the canopy. And before you go and cut it, it's easier to do it with tape. I know I need to have, when I drop this down, I don't want it under stress that I'm squeezing it. I want to just drop it down and it just sits on there and touches all around. Just like a piece of sheetrock. When you put sheetrock up, you want it to touch all around, not hit on any hard spots before we actually put it down. So I'm going to, you can see I'm just going to remove this little in the front. Now you can see, even though I have it hard up here, now watch back here, the back is off just a little bit. And I don't want to squeeze this down, so you can see the hard spot in here. I'm just going to do the same thing with the tape. Trim away that hard spot or even sand it away. The idea being, you want to take the canopy and you want it to drop on and it touches completely. If you have to squeeze it or smash it down or mash it or whatever, what happens is you build some stress into the canopy. Then you hit it with thinner or whatever later on, and the thing will give you funny shapes or whatever. It's hard enough to get a canopy real nice without having all that extra aggravation. Now, after looking at this for quite a while, what I want to do is just take about, and I've got the 1/8" tape set. I have it equal on all spots. I want to lower the whole canopy down onto the plane to give it a lower look. I want to take about another 1/8" off, but the easiest way to do that is outline it with tape. Because you have this, in other words, you have this shape right now. You just want to lower the whole canopy down. That's a great way to do it. And each time you do it, you kind of change the sweep of the canopy. It's getting lower and lower and nastier looking and everything, and the guy's head is getting squashed and the pumpkin's getting squashed. So if you go too far, that's why we buy extra canopies. Okay, with that's about as low as we want to get it. With that in mind, we're going to lay out exactly, now we're going to make the commitment where we want to have this as far as being on the top block goes. This is our last chance to change. Now what I'm doing, I'm moving it down on the floor. Put a little piece of tape holding the canopy in the position I think will be the final position here. I want it just enough back that it looks like a racer, but I don't want it looking like Tsunami there, because that's not how the real Strega really looked. And this is enough non-semi scale to begin with. But right about there looks about right as far as I can tell. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to bother doing this on camera because it's a crappy day out there. I'm going to take this outside and do the 70-foot test, lay it up on a lawn chair, stand 70 feet away, and see how I like it. Alright, real happy with that. Okay, now, one of the things I want to sight right down the center of the fuselage, and I want to mark where I think the center is. I don't want to have the canopy cocked to one side or the other. I hopefully want to get it as close to the middle as I can. Make sure the block is where it's going to be in a final position. Take a thin ballpoint pen and just get a rough outline of where this canopy should be. And this will be our reference point for laying out all the canopy details. There's a lot more to it than just gluing on a canopy, that's for sure. At least I think so. You can dramatically change the whole look of the airplane just by changing the canopy. Or just by dyeing it or painting it or whatever. And if you need custom-made canopies, give Dave Midgley a call. He's got the molds to the Nobler and the who knows what. Molds to Marilyn Monroe's buttocks. Okay. Now while we were off camera, what I did, I went and made up a spare canopy. Just in case I'm in the middle of a Sunday afternoon and I go to glue this on and something doesn't look right, I pull it off, or I may dye one and see if I like one blue or red or green or clear. I'm pretty sure I'd want it clear though on a scale plane. Anyway, having a spare canopy will be a big help somewhere down the road. Now before I take the tape off, I want to dress this edge off. Because the first thing I'm going to do is cut the ditch in the top block. And I want this to be a nice smooth fit. I want a good fit. I don't want this where epoxy or whatever is going to leak into the canopy or leak out. We'll put the coffee filter inside the canopy. So the outside you can dress off all the edges once you get the final shape. Try not to scratch it. And we're done with the tape. Clean all the dust off. Okay, we have the line on the fuselage. And the canopy sitting right there, and that's about as close a fit as even Stan Powell would be proud of that. See, that purple line is the outline of where this canopy is going to sit, right on the top block. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to trace in here maybe a 1/64 of an inch and put an inner line around. I'll do that freehand, and then I'm going to get an X-Acto knife and just chisel out a little ditch in there. Just make a little ditch that that canopy can drop right into. And here's one of those priceless tricks you always get from Pro Stun products, whether you need it or not. To trace that line on there by hand is really tough, but what you can do is just take the canopy and slide it back just a little bit. We're looking for about a 1/64 of an inch, and use the canopy itself to put the line on. And that gives you the inner edge. Boy, aren't these tricks worth $1,000,000? But I bet you Jimmy Borelli's just drooling. We're saying, I'll blow that Artnowski into the weeds next year. And he probably will. Okay, same thing on this side. Just pull the canopy back. This gives you a perfect template, because obviously you're using the canopy itself. Slide it back. Give yourself 1/64 of an inch. And in the front, just slide it back, using the canopy for a little pattern. Tell me that's not a neat idea. Okay, now in the back, you're going to need, because of the way the curvature is, you're going to need to take out a little more than you thought you would. Always the back always goes in just a little bit more. That's par for the course. This is the most important part, is notch this back in, because the back, if you start chiseling the back, you're going to have a big gap there to fill. The back always will come up a little faster than you think it will on a bubble canopy. Okay, next thing is get brand new number 11 X-Actos and carve a little ditch. Okay, now what I'll do is just put a real slow slice in. Go around the inside first. A nice easy touch. I don't want to cut the whole piece out. I just want to make a little notch like a ditch. You can do half and then turn it around. Now remember, the canopy's going in on this angle, so you don't want to cut from this side, you want to cut from this angle. Just watch the angle of the knife. This will save you a lot of work. Save you a lot of epoxylite and a lot of weight too. One of the things, we don't want to have a 6-ounce canopy on here. So that epoxylite, you know, the more epoxylite you put around a canopy, the more chances the fillet's going to bubble up and all kind of nasty things are going to happen. The thinner you can keep that fillet around a canopy, the better. Okay, now the trick is turn it around. Do the same thing this way. The angle of the knife is very important. You want to have the angle of the knife be almost the same as the canopy. And we sure don't want to go through either. We want to go as close as possible. Okay. And boy, over the years I have seen some really nice canopies. Just trying to remember how many nice ones I've seen. Boy, they're just unbelievable. I remember the canopy the late George Gatiss had in his P38. It was unbelievable. Every instrument had a light behind it too. You could shut the lights out in a room and turn the instrument lights on. Oh man, awesome. A real modeler. Okay, now with that cut, the next trick is I'm just going to cut little notches here and just pick out one piece at a time. Cut myself a notch, pick a little piece out. Let me show this on the macro lens. See, if you just cut a little notch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and pick that piece out. Cut a quarter, pick it out, pick it out, pick it out, and just go right down. A 1/4 inch piece out at a time is just about right, and you'll have a nice ditch when you're finished. Now with that channel carved, take a piece of 220, just fold it up, and be real careful you don't go through. What I'm going to do, as soon as I finish carving this, I'm going to take the top block off and go underneath this and harden up all the wood around this ditch with CA so that that canopy is sitting in nice hardwood. You wouldn't want to do that before you carve. Make sure you have a nice tight fit on the canopy. And you see, I can see a couple of pinhole spots where I've gone through, but won't be a problem. That's what the captain of the Titanic said, don't worry. Anyway, we will get that nice ditch carved in there. And a couple of swipes. Now you want to make it big enough because we're going to try to attach this with epoxy. I don't like CA, it leaves like a cloudy film on the inside of the canopy. Epoxy doesn't. When it comes time to attach it, and that'll be far down the road. Now I also had to pay strict attention. My control horn, I will not be able to go any lower than the floor of this top block because the control horn's going to rub on it. In this throw. So imagine if you made a big box here and you put your cockpit in there and everything, and then, you know, Bubby the pilot, you know, that thing would be giving him a little irritation as it went by. Anyway, things you have to think about. It's just a little more complicated than it first looks. When you see somebody with a real nice canopy, you know, a little bit of thought went into it. There you get an idea what that ditch looks like there. And you can see a little spot here I went through. And back here you need to make this radius bigger than you think you do. Okay, now it'd be a good idea just to do a little test fit with the old canopy here. See if it drops into that notch. It should stay on there by itself. Okay, now I'm going to pull this top block off, and underneath here hit it with thin CA to harden up that wood so that my canopy is sitting right in something nice and solid, like a little foundation on a house. Now an easy way to do this is take the top block, hold it up to the light, and trace out the area where the canopy actually sits. Go past it maybe 1/4 of an inch or so. And you can see what we have on there. We have the channel where that actually sits. And of course now the trick is no trick at all. Get some thin CA. What I've seen happen many times is you get a canopy installed and it's so flimsy because it's sitting in this paper thin top block. What happens is, you know, you wipe the plane off a few times and all of a sudden you've got a mess instead of a canopy. A little thin CA in there, and of course the always mandatory Q-tip, spread it around. As soon as you feel it going off, you'll have enough. As soon as your eyes water, you'll know you've had enough here. Listen, Borelli, I want to see a cockpit on that plane this year. I know Borelli's building a secret weapon out there. I want to see cockpits. Have a cockpit contest. And there's a little thin spot right here where the canopy is I want to touch up too. Yeah, just wait for that to kick off. Now I'm just double checking. I had to take a little more material out of the back, as you always do. Make sure now it's off the top block. Now, if you find, like I do, that you're missing a little spot here, you can sand the canopy, or you can just run the knife right along the edge of the canopy and take out some sandpaper, fold up some 220 or whatever. Now that that's hardened underneath, you can really get a nice, you know, you're working on some solid material here instead of working on a marshmallow. I'm just going to mention this trick that Ski Dombrowski told me about on his plane, and he has, oh boy, does he have a canopy. What he did is when he put this canopy on, and when he did the epoxylite, he put some black epoxy paint, or I think ink, I don't remember what he said, but it was black something, in with the epoxylite, so that any epoxylite that showed inside the canopy would already be black. It would look like it belonged there. There's nothing worse. And I've tried this myself. I've tried to attach a canopy with CA, and you look inside and You can see all those little white bubbles of the CA, and then now it's attached. Now what do you do? Anyway, the black is a good idea. Maybe we'll try to put a little black, I don't know, epoxy paint or something in with the epoxy, so that if we do see it, it'll look black, it'll kind of disappear. Now pretty much for the rest of working with this top block, we want to work off a nice flat table. I don't want to build a bow into it or anything, so needless to say, let's scrape off all the trash from the last time we worked off the glass. Always clean the glass with an ice scraper. We want to lay out. Let's see how this looks. We want to keep the block nice and flat while we're working on it. Because it's terrible if you start working on this and you build a banana out of it, or a birch bark canoe or something. Right about here, this looks like we've got a pretty good fit now all around on that canopy. Now the first thing I want to do with the block upside down, where I have all this CA in here, I want to build a floor underneath here, even with the bottom of the block. Then I want to take the block and bring it over to the fuselage and make sure I haven't done this. I haven't spread it, or I haven't got it too thin in one dimension. I want to have a nice, and I'll use 16th balsa, lay a piece of 16th balsa, grain going side to side. And that'll give me the limit where the push rod and the horns are not going to run in and and tickle the pilot while he's flying. Alright, with the grain going side to side, laying out a piece of 16th inch wood. And I want to make sure I'm not spreading the block or pinching it. Just a question now of hopefully connecting the dots and get a nice clean cut. And we want this to be flush. I don't want to have this sticking down below that top block. Now I just did a little test fit in here. What I did, showed us on camera, I took this, put it up over the fuselage, and it was spread out about a 16th too much. So what I'm going to do, and of course what I want to do, I want to come at least even with the front of the canopy. So maybe I'll just take and sand off just a little bit of this. It looks like it's hard in the front only. Just sand off the front a little bit. I want to just make sure I have that smooth fit, that I'm not sticking out or that I'm notched in. Once I have that, then I can mark on here, this is important, and I want the front of this to be right near the front of the canopy outlet. Mark where that should be. Now what I'm going to do is put a little arrow on here. The reason for putting the arrow on is I have exactly the place I want. I don't want to put this in upside down. I don't want to put it in sideways. What I want to do now is I want to give this a very slight chamfer. This has a curve coming in. I want to put a very slight chamfer in this wood. Very slight. So it'll be a little better joint. This again is going to be actually become a fuse former, so it will add some strength. And I don't want to stick down below there at all. Okay. I took out this old sanding belt that I had. I was sanding floors in the house with this thing. Nice heavy dark color sandpaper. I use this for a pattern, and I'm going to epoxy this right into place. Remember, I have the little arrow, so I want to go on the other side. I'm going to epoxy that right in place now. And that'll then become the floor, the canopy floor. And just keep the arrow on the other side. We'll center this, even though there's probably going to be half of this will be covered up. This gives a nice realistic textured look to the floor. And of course sandpaper comes in all different colors if you really wanted to. You could get red sandpaper, green sandpaper, or whatever. Alright, I want to attach this with epoxy. This is kind of stiff sandpaper. I really do want to get a good bond on this. I don't want to have it come flying off halfway through the season. Okay, there's our floor. Just let that epoxy dry for 10-15 minutes. We're ready to go on to the next step. The next step is I just want to tack this ever so gently in the corners. And then double, triple check that I'm not putting a spread in it. Believe me, the first time you do one of these and you go to put the block on and it spreads open, you learn a very valuable lesson. Where's that fuselage now? Check that we still have that contour that we want. Okay. Now you also want to check every step of the way that you're not making a banana out of the block. So lay it down on the table flat. See that you have a decent, decent chance of getting it nice and flat, and that you haven't spread that open or concaved it in. Not only do you want a permanent joint here, but I really want to have a radius of thick CA here too. I really don't want this getting loosened up, boy. I mean, Gene Schaefer had a pilot that the head came off halfway through a season. Some other embarrassing things can happen. Enough embarrassing things happen in this hobby, you don't have to add any to them. So I'll put a nice bead of thick CA, then we're going to flip this over and plot out where the actual hole, or whatever you want to call it, the cavity for the canopy will be. Remember, every step of the way here we want to seal this too. We not only want to have it strong, I don't want to have little holes where dust can get through and all that other nonsense. And what I want to do, I want to look at the bottom and I want to kind of roll it over and plot where that floor starts and ends. And I can just put some light marks here. Cut the hole a little bit on the small side and then work it up to the big side. I know I have the floor from there to there, so I'll kind of cut this on the small side. Leave a little bit of extra room around the edge. And then pretty much just connect the dots here. And I'll be ready to start building my box. Now when I cut this out, obviously a brand new blade, but I want to cut so that all the cuts are 90 degrees. I don't want to have these things go off on angles because I'm going to want to put the sides, the internal sides, and this is like building a dollhouse. The sides I want to have come right up completely parallel here, and of course the back of the chair fit right inside the canopy nice. Just a little macro lens here to give you an idea of what we have so far. Hope you can follow this all step for step. I'm trying to do this really as many, get every step and get every one of them on video, so there's no secret here, and you can have one of those front row canopies too. I'm going to try to hold that knife at a 90-degree angle so we get a nice tight fit on our sides here. And of course some of the wood has been hardened up by the CA, which is good. Because what we're really doing here is making a very delicate thing. Now save this little piece that came out. You may want to use this at some future time. It looks like a real textured floor like you would find. Well, anyway, this is the way it was in that airplane that I owned, that air coupe. I think it had a sandpaper floor and catwalks and stuff. Anyway, just to give you an idea. Okay, the next thing, we're going to plot our sides. I want to create two sides, one on each side, get them glued in, and that'll stabilize everything so this won't be flimsy, and then we can work on the chair and the dashboard. I just want to take a piece of 16th balsa and just get the length right here. I'll trace this out, and then I'll have a piece in fact, I'll make this oversized, and I can probably cut two pieces at once here. And we can just let the pieces stick up out of the fuse side as far as we want. It won't be a problem. Just leave them a little oversized for now. Now, next step, we'll just trim some of this off so we get down to where we have a human size here. We want to actually going to use this for a pattern. So I want to leave this sticking up just a little bit. It'll create a little bit of a three-dimensional look in there. Now I'll just trace it over and make a duplicate pattern. Use one to make the other pattern. Now that I have both pieces there, I'm going to take these out and put a lining on them, laminate them to 64th plywood so that I won't see any wood grain in the final fit here. Now I got the balsa with the grain going straight up and down. I'm trying to make some real integrity in this box so we don't get anything funny happening. And of course the grain in the 64th plywood running the same way. Now I'll just let that CA dry on there and then cut them out and sand all the edges nice and clean. Now I just want to get the edges real nice. Take a sanding block, nice smooth edges, because we want to have a sealed surface here. Actually, I'm going to sand both sides of this and leave the dust on. The dust will help kick this off when we put it in position, in the final position. Now I have these edges all nice. These are ready to put in, but I want to do my detailing now on the side. I'll do one side at a time. Now the first detail I want to make is a throttle quadrant. And this is what a real throttle quadrant looks like. I'm making it out of 1/8 inch plywood for a reason. There's going to be a pin going in here, and I want the pin to really anchor into something solid. I don't want it, again, I don't want it jumping out 7, 8, 10 years from now when I'm right in the middle of winning the gnats, have the thing fall apart. Now I used the first one to trace out the second one, and then we're going to sandwich these between a piece of 64th plywood with 32nd so that there'll be a groove right in the middle, just like a real throttle quadrant. Now this is a spot where dollhouse building skills come in. Just ask Joe Adamusco, he'll tell you. Anyway, you got to enjoy. This is going to be a day or two, maybe even 3 days of just, well, making detailed little parts. You're not going to finish this in one day unless you really do a sloppy job. And I really want this to be, on this plane anyway, no matter what the outcome, no matter how well it flies, I want this to be, you know, the focal point of the plane. So little things like the throttle quadrant, it's going to take time. And just relax and enjoy it. That's all you can do here. Get them sanded down nice. Plywood makes a really nice throttle quadrant. If you do make this out of balsa, just beware. The problem is, or can be, you run into that old bugaboo that years later. And remember, I try to build everything as if it was going to last a lifetime, even though my body probably won't last a lifetime or whatever. Anyway, radius all the edges. Now we want to join these two little guys together with just enough space in between them that it looks like a throttle quadrant. Now if you need even any more ideas than this, not that I'm the scale expert, find somebody in your group or your friend that's a scale modeler. He probably knows all these tricks, if not more. Magazines, those Air Classics are good. They always show dashboards. You can see what some of these planes really look like. Okay, that's one. Now the trick, I want to get this pulled apart and get the other one on the other side exactly the same. And there's really no end to the amount of detail you can do on this. Frank McMillan, I'm sure, is one of the people that had extensive Al Rabe. Remember Bob Whiteley had some nice canopies. Just to name it. Ted Fancher, some great ones. Nice little touch, and it really, really is a good way for you to show off your modeling skills. Okay. Yeah, it is our finished little throttle quadrant. And when that has the little pin sticking up, and we'll put some little graduations on that. Now, this is an important thing here while you're doing this kind of stuff, is to look around. You know, every time I look at a magazine, I try to get some ideas of cockpit details, just things that'll give me ideas. Ideas are worth their weight in gold. Some nice pictures of Al Rabe's Mustang. Talk about nice canopies. And I mean, just look at what a focal point this is. Beautifully detailed, beautiful. And believe me, I always save the magazines that have good canopy shots in them. Just a good source. I just took my lunch break sitting around here eating an apple and looking at an old magazine trying to get some ideas for my canopies. Now I want to turn this into, I want to get some material with some lightning holes in here. Just simulated lightning holes. Okay, next step, I'm just going to take a piece of balsa wood, laminate this up as if it was a reinforcing piece. Oops, just broke it. Thank God for CA. And what I've done, I've traced it on the back. I'm going to go cut some lightning holes in it. Okay, I got to retrace that piece. Now, a little grindstone with a point on it is a good way to make up lightning holes. Hey, nice sidewinder canopy there. Nice view of that canopy. I don't know what tape this is. Nice canopy. Nice pilot there. Look at that pilot. Check him out. Midgley, eat your heart out. Here he is in living green, thanks to Mike Costello. Alright, anyway, reality time. This is what we've been using to carve this, in case I didn't show this up on just a grindstone with a point. I laminated this to a piece of 64th plywood. Now, of course, I'll just cut it out, sand one side, and attach it there, and I'll have one fuse side at least semi-complete anyway. Notice I'm working on a piece of black craft paper, art paper, or whatever you want to call it, because I can see the details better, thanks to my great eyesight. When I work on a light surface, I can't really see all the little errors in what I'm doing. Just points up the errors, much like the silver paint. Now I want to get in there and clean these out. Just get all the edges nice and straight. And we're ready to attach them. And finish this little side up. Square all the edges off. And this is one side actually pretty well detailed out and finished and ready to install. And what I'll do now is make the opposite side. The other side won't be exactly the same. It'll have little differences. The plane is not a symmetrical mirror image, but we will try to include some realistic looking things. I don't know what we're going to do yet. Time for some more ideas. Just get a little look here to see if this is going to look decent, will fit decent or whatever. Just trying to get a little look here. Good. Now making up the other side here, just pretty much, I don't want to make mirror images. I want them to be similar but not exactly alike. I'll make up the same piece. I won't go over this over and over again. Another piece of 16th balsa, 64th plywood, and put the holes in it with the grindstone. Well, that's about all we're going to have time for today. Got our class starting on Monday night, building class, and we're expecting some people over tonight. If you happen to be around the area, you come over too. Alright, as I said before, my Monday night building class is going to be here real soon, so we're going to put this away. And we have a couple of days of masonry work to do, and then we'll be back making up the seat, making up the dashboard, whatever. In the meantime, think about getting ideas. Ideas, 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 ideas. That's the way to go. Look at magazines. Get every idea you can that you possibly can put into this cockpit. Monday night, and James is putting in some air vents here. Little get-togethers on Monday night, pizza get-togethers.
I'm only here for the pizza.
Yeah,
I can
we
stay
know.
home and do this.
Ron's putting some center line.
That's not a good center line.
These are the parts. Well, you can do it over. Just sand the old one off if it's crooked.
Maybe the line is good.
Okay.
Maybe the line.
You want to reference it off the side most of all.
I'm referenced off the ends.
The line is good, but the ruler's crooked. Is that what you're saying?
The world has a curve in it, I think.
The line is straight. I gotta let Wendy look.
Where's sand? All right, let me take a look at that. Where's the sanding slave? Is he out there? Keep sanding! Keep sanding. This is Brian the sanding slave. Keep sanding, boy. I'll let you know when to stop. Away, that's it, and stay on that one side. Trying to work up some foam components with Brian and his father here.
Great.
Alright, now do the same thing on the other side.
Just open it. Stay to the inside of it. Great, right there.
This is a little idea that Jeff came up with here for a take-apart thing you can put under the seat of your car to use as a rack when you want to flip your plane over at the field. Now, obviously, this would, you know, just sit on underneath the seat of your car or whatever. You snap it together. It's all PVC.
Put foam up here and here.
And you got a nice little rack.
And you don't need it for this side. You'd put it up here for the...
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sit up. Wait.
Actually, that's a good idea when you're working on stuff too, for putting, like today I was using your foam thing. Where's that foam thing? Over on a table, Ron? Oh, never mind, never mind. But anyway, this could take the place of that. This is a good idea. Jeff's always what? Ryan, are you done with those elevators yet? Man, get busy.
Here's your foam pad.
Frank McMillan's going to give you a body slam. You'll never see a picture in a magazine. Yeah, here's the old thing for putting a plane in. Just a chunk of foam, and this is like the take it to the field special here. Another good idea from Jeff Stiefel.
And you would wait, and if you weight it down, then drill some straps in and then Velcro the straps over it. Dust devil wouldn't lift the plane up.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Or you could have hooks if you're flying like at the club field. Put some hooks in the ground like I put my stooge in.
Yeah, U-hooks. They're on the grass.
Yeah, U-hooks with 1/8" music work.
You still need something to come up over the plane, though, to hold the plane down.
Yeah. How's this coming, Jimmy? Okay?
Yeah, it looks fine. I think that's about as far as I'm going to go till I get the plywood
Right.
piece cut.
Yeah.
Cut it to shape from there.
Aside from the
Good building session
foam,
today.
which was the
Everybody's
most
having a good time.
expensive, This was about $2-3.
Yeah,
Monday nights at Wendy's. What a thrill. 2 pies, 4 sodas. Yeah, project night here at here at Wendy's house. We have 2 PMs under construction, 1 Jaguar, 1 small Cardinal. So much junk on it. Anyway, had a great session last night. Great, just great. Here's one thing I wanted to show. Anybody that has never seen this canopy, this is the plane that Jeff Stifel started a couple of years ago. Then his wife got pregnant, of course. Kind of put the kibosh on it, but brought this over last night during all the little rivet details inside. Nice little pilot. I got to tell you a funny story about this pilot while we're talking about pilots. Look at the nice instruments here. Nice instrument work. Let's see if we can get it on the camera. Just give you a little thought. He's got all the little rivet heads going around the back and the seat and all that stuff. Anyway, what happened with Jeff, I was watching his house years ago while he was out on vacation with his with his wife, and I was feeding his cat. And what we did one day toward the end of the vacation, Midgley came over and we went down to Jeff's house, and he had the plane just like you see it here, and we took the canopy off, took some lacquer thinner and made the pilot bald, put the canopy back on, and it was about 2 weeks before he recognized that the pilot, because he wasn't working on the plane every day, he recognized that the pilot was bald, and he called up, "Hey, you guys are..." So, anyway, we'll get back to our project later. We got to go do some work on a house today. Now this morning I just want to, I only have a little bit of time here. I want to do a little test fit here. I want to make up a dashboard. Just test that my parts all fit. Get a little tape or pin or something to hold these in position so I can make up the dashboard. After fumbling around for 5 minutes, I finally realized the pin would be easier than just trying to balance everything in there. Now the reason for that is I want to cut out a little pattern for my dashboard next. That's the next thing. I'll get some 64th plywood and try to make up a little pattern for the dashboard. Now the next step in making this is I cut a piece out of cardboard, IBM card, till I got the shape I wanted. I traced it out on 16th plywood. Now, if you were looking to save a little bit of weight, yeah, of course you could do it on balsa, but in this case what I'm trying to do is I want to get as firm and stiff of a cockpit area as I can. I don't want any cracks or anything breaking or falling apart. And this little amount of plywood really won't add anything as far as weight goes. This is important though, and I've made this mistake so many times I'm sick of telling you, is to get a tight fit on a dashboard. You still want to get that airtight fit. You don't want to have a loose fit. And make sure that when you put the canopy down, it all kind of looks like it belongs there. It can't stick up so high that the guy can't see where he's going. Even though this is not a scale plane, that seems like it would be important. Okay, with that little pattern, I want to start laying out the instruments. Just make sure we have a, and I've done this of course, make sure you can still see forward on it, at least make it half realistic anyway. Now from an 1/8 inch piece of plywood, what I've done is traced out my little backer board that's going to hold the instruments. This gives it a 3-dimensional look. The idea of this is to have a 3-dimensional look. And I've used a little grindstone on a Dremel tool to burn those holes in. Try to get them in some semi-realistic manner, of course. And now I want to take this piece, I'll saw this out, and this will become a sandwich, and my instruments will go in here. But they'll have a 3-dimensional look by doing this. And all this little detail, you think, somebody looks in a cockpit, nobody's going to see it. Baloney. When this is done right, I'm not saying this one will be, but like the Red Baron, people used to look in there and go, shh, shh. How did he do that? How did he do that? Now what I've done, I've taken some 500 wet and dry sandpaper, glue it right with CA, sand the plywood a little bit, leave the dust on, glue the sandpaper right to it. Now I want to look up to the light and spot out all my little instrument holes. Now I can just trace out these holes roughly, and I'll go back in with the Dremel tool and burn them out. Now the little 500 sandpaper adds a nice texture look. If you paint it, well, yeah, you can get a lot of different effects, but the 500 sandpaper looks like what a real dashboard would look like, the anti-glare kind of look. And now because we have a different grid on the floor, we have I have a rough like 80 grid or something, and some mild grid up here, it gives a nice contrast. Everything starts to look 2- and 3-dimensional. Alright, I'll just burn these out with the Dremel tool. Alright, now all I'm going to do is trace out on the back of this with my backer board and go cut this out on the jigsaw. This is the whole purpose of this. It gives it a nice 3-dimensional look. And of course now the edges where you can see the wood, we'll hit those with a little bit of an ink marker. Not paint, an ink marker is much better. It leaves a nice dull finish. Now I clipped out some of the instruments that look like the appropriate size. I want to see them through there. See, that gives that a nice 3-dimensional look. So what I'm going to do is cut these out with a pair of scissors and just tack glue them on in place here with a little drop of CA. Strega. What, the wood in the back? You know, a lot of things that get done. So anyway, this week. What I did, I took an ink marker and just, ink seems to work real well. It gives a nice contrast. And if a little bit gets on a sandpaper, it doesn't really matter. I get the edges nice and black, flip it over, do the same thing from the back. That really adds a nice 3-dimensional look to the instruments. So all these little tips and tricks and whatever, these are all things I've stolen from people that build scale models. I don't take any credit for any of these ideas at all. Now what I did, I took a piece of an old Canopy here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandwich this together. I'm going to take this piece, sandwich in a piece of this same stuff Canopies are made out of. Without that laminate in there, this really doesn't, you don't get the total effect. I'm going to do this with 5-minute epoxy, and then put this aside to dry, and while this is aside to dry, I'll work on the seat. And this really, what gives you the effect is when you see the, I'll try to do this on camera here, you can see that as you look through the canopy, you can see the glass reflecting on the instruments. That's what really makes this look, at least in my book, realistic. Anyway, with that in mind, I'll laminate this together with 5-minute, try not to get any inside on the glass where you can see it. I just put dots with a toothpick all around the edge. While this is drying, I'll work on the seat. Now, I just want to get a nice edge on here now that this epoxy is dry. You have this nice 3-dimensional dashboard now, and of course we can still add more details. Notice I haven't assembled anything yet. I'm making all these parts so I can paint them and detail them, do the final detailing and everything, and then glue them together. Once a cockpit is put together like a box, you can go crazy trying to get in there and get around corners and things. If it's all sitting out like this, boy, it makes life a lot easier. And I want to get a nice even edge on this. The combination of the black from the ink marker, the sandpaper, various grits, and the gloss of the glass on the instruments gives a nice, real nice texture to everything. Very realistic, very nice. Of course, this really isn't a scale model. This is just meant to be like a, I don't even know the right word, like a fantasy model, but it is nice, and this is certainly a part of model aviation that might be lost forever if nobody documents it. Alright, so far this is what we have as far as cockpit detail goes, and I'm working on a pattern right now. Make a little pattern up for the seat that we want to use. I just put the parts in here just to make sure I have a nice tight fit. I don't want any air leaks into here. And then I can get the angle that I want to have the dashboard on. And I can finalize my pattern for the seat. Hope this guy's good and skinny too. What I did, I made up a little pattern for the seat to take a look at how I wanted it, and then I realized when I put the canopy on, I don't want it so close to the canopy that it's putting stress on, and I want to lay the seat back just a little bit. Give it a realistic angle. A pilot doesn't sit, you know, like he's at the dinner table. He kind of lays back. So here's a little tip. When you want to have a pattern that you know is close but no cigar, now you can lay it out on another piece of plywood and just add the material. See, in this case I needed material at the bottom, the material around the top. So use that for your first pattern and just get rid of it. Now you can get the guy in there. Let's get him in some kind of realistic reclining position here. Again, I don't have any of these parts glued in. I want to do some final detailing. Now I can cut the bottom of the seat. Okay, now every step of the way you want to make sure you're not building something you can't get the canopy on. Next thing is let's make a pattern for the bottom of the seat. And then I can actually detail up the part of the seat that we're going to see. Now remember that hatch we cut out at the top and we're saving it? One of the things we can use that for is the bottom of the seat. And since it already has the hollowing part of the curve, I'm taking a kicker bottle, I want to have a little reverse curve in a seat. You just don't want to have a flat, a pilot wouldn't be sitting on a flat seat here. Want to have some, some curvature to it anyway. And then we can just attach this with the angle that we want and cut out the bottom of the seat. You see how we've used up that hatch and it has a nice little reverse curve in it. Now we can just trim out for the bottom of the seat. Okay, now I'm just going to take a little bit off each side until this drops right in nice. With a relatively, well, it all fits already. I don't even have to drop it in. Get the nice angle that we want. Plus you can also see a little light under the seat itself, which it makes it a little more realistic. You can see the floor going under the seat in this position. Alright, now we're going to have to make the back of the seat and then make the back details on the back of the seat. What I did, I used the other half of the curved block that hatch that came off the other half to make the other half of the seat. And what I want to do is get a nice realistic joint down at the bottom so I don't have to use a lot of filler or anything down there. And I put the curve on the back of the seat so it really has the look of, I'm trying to curve the back in. It has the look of a real, like a Mustang type of seat. And what I'll do here is I'll just harden up the edge with CA just to make sure we don't lose that edge. Again, just wipe it with Q-tips. This was nice that we could use up that hatch because that hatch had that curve already carved into it, so that was really nice that we could do that. And now it makes for a real, nothing more unrealistic than a flat seat. It looks like something from a dollhouse or something. So this gives it a little bit of a curve like a normal aircraft seat would have. And we'll glue that in position, get a nice thin seam down there. Okay, we're ready to do some detailing on the seat now. That's all nice in one piece and fits right in the cockpit real nice. Now a good way to add some detail to this is with an ordinary ballpoint pen, and because this is soft balsa, it puts the creases right in and has the look of rolled and pleated interiors, or whatever you want to call it, like a cushiony seat would have. It's an ordinary ballpoint pen, and it leaves a nice detailed look in the wood. Kind of has the look of a rolled and pleated interior here. Ordinary ballpoint pen. Now I just take an ordinary Sharpie permanent marker and blacken it all in. This is going to be a black vinyl seat. Blacken it all in, and you'll pick up all the highlights and the details of all the little ridges that you've put in there. Believe it or not, when this is all done, it won't look so bad. But now you have all those nice ridges in there. So that we can see how this is all shaping up so far. But of course, always give this a shot. Put the old canopy on and just see how you like it. Yeah, so far so good. Now there's a lot of materials you can use to make seat belts out of. One of the things that it seems to work real good is 1200 sandpaper folded over. And what I do, I fold it over, get some CA along the edge, get it on there with the Q-tips. That tends to get some dust in there and kick it off. Fold it over. Now this way you have the texture on both sides. And you can just press it down underneath a piece of plywood till it dries. Now after that kicks off, I trace out the seat roughly 1/8 of an inch thinner than the seat, and I can get the harness belts all in one cut here, all in one piece of paper. Now with the harness and everything ready, now this piece you can just fold back and tack glue it in place. That gives you that nice edge right there. Now another nice way I've done this in the past is with shoelaces. But in this case, I don't know, the shoelaces would be a little bit out of scale. They'd be like way too thick. But the 1200 sandpaper does work well for this. Now here's one of these tricks that's worth $1 million. It's just unbelievable how nice it works. This is the packaging that these surgical steel blades come in. Midgley gave me these. If you need one of these packages, just let me know. I'll send you one up and even have a blade in it. Now I stripped off some of the packaging material. And what this is very, very soft, almost pure aluminum. And you can see when you put a fold in it, it stays folded real nice. And what we're going to use this for is to make some very realistic belt buckles. How realistic that looks as a seat belt buckle, and it's just a little piece that goes around and around and around. There's nothing crazy about it. And then in the back, just drop a CA, hold it. Again, we get this nice variety of texture where we have some shiny stuff. The dull, the seat belt actually is dull. If you were going to use material, you wouldn't want to use shiny material. Everything inside of a cockpit is usually dull. And all you do here is lay the material flat on a table, take some Q-tips, and rub it flat. Cut it into thin strips. The scissor is just perfect for this. You can see I'm just wrapping this around, and each time you wrap it, it gets a little thicker than the material behind it. It adds another three-dimensional look. What we're trying for is a lot of little three-dimensional things that'll catch your eye, some sparkle, some shine. Not everything exactly the same. And one final little touch you can put is with a pen, ballpoint pen again, you can put in some of the details of the belt buckle. And just any little detail that gives it a little texture, so it just doesn't look like an ordinary block of aluminum. And what I did, I just glued this to a piece of backer, 16th balsa backer, so it would sandwich these belt joints in and give me a nice smooth fit on the back. Now I'm just going to blend this into where my canopy sits in. Now I just put some simulated lightning holes in the back of this chair assembly. Dress off the edge. A nice clean edge here. Now of course the old Sharpie permanent markers make a nice dull finish, real quick too. Well, that's about all we're going to have time for today. Tomorrow we'll get into painting the other parts, putting some more details on, maybe even finishing this up, I don't know. We have only a few hours each day to devote to building, so trying to make the most of what we can, and obviously try to give you as many little ideas and tips and ideas and who knows what. Give you a headache. Okay, this is where we ended up today. We'll pick this up tomorrow. Hopefully get a good day at the concrete site here, the quarry. Alright, we hope you're enjoying the presentation. We're going to pack this in today. This is the end. This is the end. Okay. And try to pick this up tomorrow with some more detailing, and just while I'm thinking about it is right now to be thinking about what we're going to do between now and the next time we work on this, what else we can put in here for some more details and really make it as well detailed as possible. Alright, today we only have a little time left here. We want to mark out, I want to make the control yoke. I want to try to get it here in position. I'm going to mark this spot with a pen, then go in and drill a hole on a drill press and make up the little yoke. Anybody that's ever seen a real a stick inside a Mustang or whatever knows there's a little handle on the end of it. We're going to make up a little handle on the end of this, and we're actually just using an ordinary toothpick for the yoke. Now, step one is I cut the cut the flat end of the pointy end of the toothpick off. Now I'm going to get some material and make a little handle up here, the little handle. I keep calling this a yoke, it's really a stick. Boy, Al Ray would jump all over me for this. Now the next step is I pressed on a little piece of tubing right over the toothpick. I drop a CA and then chamfer off the top edge here. And that will then be our control stick. Okay, I just use a little eyelet here to simulate the boot that would be going down into the floor. And this is ready for painting. Now I'll get out some flat black paint, get this painted up, and this can be glued in position. Now one of the techniques I use, when you're doing cockpit details, you want to take the same color. I've taken some black and some white, and constantly change the shade so it adds some dimension to it, because the one thing you really don't have in a cockpit is that three-dimensional look. So I want to have each thing a little bit different color gray, at least on the stick here, and I'll use this to practice my paint mixing. I want the stick to be gray, but I want the knobs to be black shiny like they were rubber. Rubber would be black and shiny. So again, this is just, you know, so keep saying it over and over again, like dollhouse work. My wife would be proud of me. The stick is silver, not metallic silver, like a gray silver, and I can just tone it down a little with the white, make a little palette just like you do in artwork, and we'll be doing all the painting inside that way with various shades. Leave the white and black out so you can tone it up or tone it down, as the case may be. I'll have to show this on a macro lens here. Now you just see the three different colors of paint we have on here. Alright, that's pretty much ready to glue in now. Now what I did, I just put a nice little eyelet around the stick when I glued it in. Of course I'll build a nice big layer of thick CA around the bottom of it to hold it in position and harden up the wood. You see how you can see the little edge of the eyelet sticking up? It kind of looks like a boot, a little stick. The shiny black simulating the rubber. Now as always, it's good to do a little test fit, check all your parts here. We're going to be getting ready to paint some of these parts, or maybe even today. Check everything out, make sure everything still snaps right back into position. This is like a little build-it-yourself kit here. It's always easier to work on these parts when they're not glued in. Boy, once you glue them in, it seems like you need paintbrushes that go around corners and all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay, with the little stick and so we're going to make the throttle and this whatever this is going to be, the flap actuator rods here. We'll do that next. Now I took a pin and just bent it over here and put a little blob of thick CA on it and painted it black. That'll be one of my lever arms. Now what I'm doing, I'm mixing up some, what I hope is going to be the zinc oxide color of paint. I mix a little white, a little green. And what I'm going to do is try to three-dimensionalize. In other words, anything that's further back in the canopy, painted a little darker. Anything further forward, a little lighter. I'll also put just a little bit of talcum powder in this mix, just so that it'll be a dull finish. As you go along, you can make some surfaces darker or lighter. Now one thing I have to mention here before this video ends, we're near the end. This will be whatever we have left over on this canopy will picked up. This is an ongoing set of tapes of the building of Strega. So you may or may not want to watch some of the other tapes, but we hope you get some good information out of these tapes. Something you can use on your next plane so that, you know, the theme, my theme for 1995 is there's room in this hobby for everybody. Certainly room for semi-scale planes, pipes, no pipes, smoke pipes, whatever. We all have room. We all have little interesting things we like to do. And man, let's get Al Ray back in the hobby. That's goal one here. Let's go, man. Get him back. Diversity. How about Walker's B-17? How about some more semi-scale plane? How about some Reno air racers? Awesome. There's a good tip when you're painting little parts, just use an X-Acto knife to hold them in position, and you get nice, because I got one coat on there. I'll start painting up the second coat. Vary it by putting more and less talcum powder in the paint. You'd like a flat finish. And the colors inside the holes can be a little darker. Things in the foreground can be a little bit lighter. Background darker, foreground lighter. It'll make everything look more three-dimensional. Just wanted to show how I've got the two colors of shading on here now. And I put even more talcum powder in it as I darkened up the paint here. Kind of like using a little palette, mix it and get it right on there. Now I mixed up a real light batch. This has a little extra white in it for doing the outside of the cockpit. And obviously, I'm pretty much ready to start doing some little fine details on this. Usually it'll take 2 or 3 coats depending on how much talcum powder you put in the paint. A little extra talc, make it nice and flat like it should be. Then it also accents when you see the shiny paint that's buffed out and this dull. It really stands out real nice. Now you also want to paint half up in the ridge here. Now I can see we're running out of tape here and I don't want to leave out any of the details, so what I'm going to do is pick this up from the point we're at now on the next tape, which will be tape 4 of the Strega set. This is tape 3, 1995 set. There'll still be some more details on the next tape. Actually, I wanted to get all the detail on here because I expect, you know, with some luck, we'll see some real nice canopies. Not only that, I want to pass on all the things that I've picked up over the years from all the people who have been good enough to share them with me. Kind of a payback thing, nothing special. Yeah, we're going to let all the paint dry and then get into some super detailing on these little parts. As I said, this probably is going to run into the next tape, but if it does, I guess I'll be a big generous fool and send people 2 tapes for the price of 1, because this is really good information. I'd really like to get it out to the people and have a little contest. Who can have the nicest canopy? Hey, great idea. I started my detailing here with a little ink pen, ordinary India ink in a pen, and just putting out some rivet heads. I'll do this piece next, and of course anything else from this point on will just be detailing of parts. And boy, this is a lot easier to do. This is why you don't glue the canopy together until the very end of the plane. Get all this detailing in before. And parts with all the rivet head detailing on them. Relatively easy to do. Now what I did, I sharpened up a piece of aluminum tubing here, and I'm just using this to put little indentations into the wood. And these can make simulated rivets or Zeus fasteners. And that you can just put those fine little rivet head details in there. And you can put them randomly wherever you think they look good. So, you know, in the middle of each circle you can put a little slit. Makes it look kind of like a screw head or a Zeus fastener, as the case may be. You can make some pretty creative stuff this way. It only takes a few seconds. See, I've turned the circles into screw heads here in some spots. And glued in our little pin. We'll do the same on the other side here. Our little throttle quadrant, our little flap, whatever this is. Who knows what this is? TV channel changer, who knows? Alright, what we're going to do, we're going to pick the little bit that's left of this up on the next tape. There's still some little detailing and some other little stuff I want to do to trim around the edge here. I want to make a backrest piece here. A couple other little details I want to do, but I hope from watching this, you know, you've gotten some good ideas. And obviously the theme of 1995, the year coming up, is there's room in this hobby for all of us. Let's all try to remember that. This is a good year to remember there's room for semi-scales, room for jets, room for twins, room for big planes, small planes, pipes, no pipes, people with long hair, people with black faces. There's room in this event for all of us. That's my closing remarks, and we'll see you on the next tape. Hope you'd enjoyed, really, all the little details that have gone into this. A labor of love. Closing this video out with one of my favorite pictures. Look at this snake in the grass over here. The video snake. Anyway, working hard to become a reptile in disguise here. Anyway, Bob Lampione's official flight at Flushing. Okay, see you on the next tape. Strega, 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 strega. Alright, this is tape 4 of the 1995 Strega construction series. Just some pictures that have come in from various sources over the week. Trying to keep up with this. This, needless to say, is Brian Kiefer. And thanks to Bob Lampione for donating that plane to his cause. I'm sure he'll learn from it. One of my favorite photos, the women of Flushing. My God, you could make a soap opera of this. All my favorite women. Everybody has contributed to our hobby being just the most fun it possibly can be. Some photos here from Flushing. There's Vic giving the electric handshake to a contestant. Carlos Serra receiving his award. The highest place in Portuguese pilot on the East Coast. Macaluso giving Brian Kiefer his award. These are the kind of pictures I really like for our album. I will pass these on to Stunt News. One of my favorites. The Bhagwan, doing what he does best. Get the camera caught in his eye. Lenny Malota, Cardinal Kit owner. Look at the face. I love this face. Can you believe this? What a great picture. Anyway, there are some really nice ones. Here's a nice one with Big Jim and Midgley. Alright, we hope you got your video camera all dialed in here and whatnot and whatever here. Some more tsunami pictures that came in over the week. Nice photos here. These are from Midgley, by the way. Anyway, thanks to everybody that's been donating photos. Hey, Billy Suarez. Man, Billy Suarez, look at a smile on that face. Unbelievable. Borelli, the Borelli man, the Lampione man. Here's the two guys that ran Vic Macaluso's tuned pipe plane right into, not his tuned pipe plane, his Oriental, right into the ground. Come on, Lampione. No more crashing, Lampione. Gives me a day of work. Carlos Serra's wife. Unbelievable. Nice picture of his, nice picture of Borelli giving Lampione a launch with, look at the Tape 4, as we begin, we have some work to do today on this canopy. A couple other little things I want to take care of here. And we hope we're going to get some more construction footage of Strega on this. I got some news I want to run by you real quick, though, before we even start. I just got this information this morning. I got it from Steve Busso. So if it's not correct, call Busso up. Steve passed on the Results of the World Championships, you'll probably be getting this tape a lot sooner than you'll be getting your model aviation or flying models or whatever. Chinese were 1, 2, and 3. Paul Walker was 4th. Ted Fancher was 5th. Somebody from Japan was 6th. An unknown person was 7th. And again, this is from Steve Busso. Bob Hunt was 8th. Kazmanada was 9th. Dave Fitzgerald was 10th. Robbie Hunt Jr. was 3rd in the junior championships. Anyway, just to pass that information on to you. Anyway, we are working on Strager's Canopy. A lot of logic to this. We want to go, we think the Nats are going to be in Pasco, and unlike Lubbock, we hope we can fly an airplane that has a normal weight. We're not looking for the ultralight, ultralight, ultralight plane. We will be putting a little more detail into this than normal. The tape before this, tape 3, had all the canopy detailing on it. All of the detailing. So from this, we're going to pick it up with a little bit of details that we haven't had on the previous videos. Maybe some ideas you can use on future planes that you're building, hopefully. We will finish up the cockpit and then move on to the other construction parts. But right now, another thing I haven't mentioned, I got the information last week or whatever, I just never put on a video, is congratulations to Vic Macaluso. He beat me in that election. He beat me like a bad stepchild. Congratulations to Vic, and I'm sure we're going to get some good informative coverage of our area out of it. Anyway, as the good loser that I am, I will try to help him, obviously, in every way possible. We kid around with each other. Vic and I have been kidding around for a long time, but basically, I think we respect each other, and I hope he respects me. He knows that, you know, I bit a guy's ear off one time that didn't respect me. So anyway, Vic, hold your ears. Anyway, just kidding around. Let's get on with doing some cockpit detail. The days are wasting. On tape 3, the canopy tape, we did most of this. It's still in pieces. You still can disassemble it. And I would suggest, if you haven't seen tape 3, you know, that would be a good place to start if you wanted to do one of these canopies. Take the guy all apart, take the seat out. You can pretty much see how we made all these little parts. We detailed them on tape 3, and now we want to get into some more detail, and then we have our stick there and everything. One of the things I want to do, I want to put some more detail in this area here, up around the front, and I'm going to start by doing that with a piece of tubing. Let's see if we can get this on the macro lens here. You can see what I've done is put simulated Zeus fittings or rivet heads here with that piece of sharpened tubing. Now it's really just a random thing here. We don't have any set plan. We're trying to, and we're not making a scale model. We just would like to have a kind of realistic cockpit. There's also some real good footage on the Sidewinder construction set as far as doing this kind of stuff. And you could take a knife and turn these into Zeus fittings. That usually works pretty well. Put them all at random angles here. Again, if you're not making a completely scale model, and this is certainly not going to be a completely scale model, you need not pay too much attention to how scale it is. But you really do want to have it that it looks, well, you know, when somebody looks by it, that it's half realistic, 3/4 realistic. What these actually do, the tubing sinks right down into the paint that has a little bit of extra talcum powder in it. And you can see you can make any combination of rivet heads. Now along the side here we'll put little dot rivet heads, and then in the back here we want to detail it up a little more. Again, we're just putting it back together. Each time we do this, put the parts back in, get a look at it, how does it look, complete, not complete, and then add some detail. You see we added a little dot to the middle of the stick. To the middle of the throttle quadrants we added a dot. That kind of made it a little more realistic. Every chance you get more dotting, more riveting. Letrosets would be good. If you're really in a pinch, you can go to a car parts. Those little model cars have all kind of little decals you can use. Anything. anything that can busy this up and yet still look realistic. And what I'm doing, I'm taking different sizes of tubing, not making them all the same. Each one just a little bit different. And you could really make some variety of things. Also, because the balsa is soft, you can use pen lines and then paint over them. That's another way to simulate some details. You can make a radio antenna, a first aid box. Bob Gialdini used to have a Playboy magazine. Go to a dollhouse store, buy a Playboy magazine or whatever. This airplane is not going to have a Playboy magazine, I can tell you right now. I want this pilot paying attention to the pattern. Now the idea is to create as many different varieties. Now this, on the edge of the canopy, I'm doing the little cutouts with the tubing with like a rivet head in the middle of them. That's one. I made like an access hatch right in front of where the dashboard is. That's another choice you have. A lot of choices here. You come up with a lot of different varieties of things. And of course improvise all you can. You can see this little guy, little access hatch with rivets around it. These roundels have a little rivet inside of them. Some Zeus fittings up here. I'm going to work on the back here for a little while. I just did a little detailing with the machinist ruler and an ordinary ballpoint pen. Let it sink right down into the wood. Gives you a little bit of an effect back there. But again, it's variety. If you have all the same rivet heads everywhere, it's going to look like, kind of different, each one. And what I did, I tack glued all these pieces in position here. And what I'm trying to do now is get a nice tight fit. And what I did is I drilled a little hole down in here and put a little piece of coffee filter in there. Now what that does, of course, you cannot make, or if you do make the canopy airtight, it's going to fog up every time you fly the plane. Also, dust is going to get in there. Every time you fly inverted, the dust will be falling. You can't build a plane without making the dust. So what I'm saying is you need to have a little air access and a little filter in there. And that's what I use. See, I trimmed off a piece of that coffee filter. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, there's a couple little spots from gluing it. I want to touch up the paint, and I want to make myself a little backrest here. Now I'm just sitting out here and putting more and more little rivet heads and details and whatever in here. I'm really starting to get to the point where I'm satisfied with it. I still have to make that thing for behind a pilot seat there. That's the little support for the pilot seat. Remember, we're looking for a little texture, for a variety. All these little rivet heads, it all comes together. Every little thing comes together here. I think this is going to be a good one. I'm kind of optimistic about it. Alright, I'm going to make this little piece for behind here, just make it out of 16th plywood. Okay, what I did, I made up a little piece of IBM card for a pattern. Make sure I clear the canopy. I'll just cut this up out of plywood, paint it, tack glue it right in. Okay, again, just burn the holes in just like I did with the little grindstone on the end of the Dremel shaft. This is ready to glue in place now. We get rid of the pattern. Okay, that pretty much completes this part of what we're going to try to do. Of course, always check that you haven't distorted anything by putting the glass on the canopy. It should fit in that ditch. We won't be epoxying that on right now, but when it comes to the right time, we haven't decided right now exactly how we're going to finish this up. But being that far ahead of the game, it's a lot easier to do it this way than once the plane is all put together. I hope you got something out of this. We'll pick this up tomorrow with more construction things, making up parts. Really having, be glad, I'm glad anyway, that this cockpit is finished. Kind of go back and look at it, and I can always add a couple more rivet heads or something as the time goes by. Kind of happy with the way that came out. Now obviously not everything we do here in the shop relates to model planes, and I'm always, at least for the people who've been subscribing to these tapes, been willing to spend 15 minutes showing them some of the little things. These are little things I bought in Home Depot, and I'm trying to get them painted up. And some little railings down here too. So I'm going to show the all the work I've been doing on the house since the last time you've taken a little tour of the house. So hey, if you don't like these little house tours, the heck with you. Spend 5 minutes with me. I'm proud of my house. And obviously the reason is all the work I've done on the house has pretty much been stuff, you know, you could learn from the videos. A lot of good information here. Working on your house. The best thing to do is learn not to be poor so you can pay somebody to work on your house, and then you can build planes. No, I just wanted to show this. This is the final product of all that painting I was doing. We put this big shelf, put all the windows in here, whatever. The last step of this whole job is going to be to replace the floor. We have some ceramic tile here. There's a purpose to all this though, and I wanted to mention this, not going to belabor this point. All the skills you learn modeling really don't go to waste when you have other jobs to do. In fact, if you look at my truck is ready for some major body work here in a couple of spots up by the front door. Modeling skills, the same skills you use to, you know, build tsunami or whatever, you can use in your house. And you certainly I've used them doing this house. Hey, all these windows have been replaced. Shelf, Georgia Ventrini did most of the engineering here. We have some fancy molding along the edge here. I don't know if you can see it. But the purpose of all this is you can use these modeling skills for a lot of things. They just don't go to waste. You know, it's a real valid point that really any skills you develop finishing, any skills you develop doing body work, whatever, none of this stuff really goes to waste. It's amazing. I don't even know if you can see this on a video, but we have about 20 tons of mica schist rock, that sparkly rock. We've been loading this up. And believe me, as soon as this house is finished, believe me when I tell you, I am looking forward more than anything in the world to having this house finished. Once this is finished, where we are going to go back into full-time modeling. I can't wait. Well, it's Halloween day and the kids haven't wrecked our pumpkin yet anyway. Anyway, it's been a long year since Karen and I bought this house, and it was in pretty sad shape when we bought it. And I really credit modeling skills to all the work I've been able to do on this myself, and with the help of George and John DeTavio. It's really been an exciting adventure, to say the least. So let's go do something down in the shop. Enough housework for today. Believe me when I tell you, I am just as proud of the work I've done on this house. Every bit as proud as I am of the airplanes. And there's a reason I'm saying that. Because a lot of people, let's go into the shop. A lot of people, they work on planes, right, and they don't realize it's valuable stuff. How could you not like working in a shop like this? It's valuable stuff you learn. You don't learn things and then just use them for model planes. You can use it for so many other things in life. Now, Karen got me this. This is just a suggestion, things you can use in your shop. She got me a used comforter. I got rid of the old junky one, all full of glue and everything. Now, the reason I'm saying this, up to this point, we actually didn't care if there was little spots of glue all over the place. But from this point on, the next thing we're going to be doing is joining wing skins for the tail, or tail skins. So I'd like to have, when I get the tail assembled and in one piece, I'd like to have it that it's going on a nice smooth surface. It's not going on one of these things with all little mountains of hot stuff and CA and stuff. So anytime you can pick up a used comforter from one of your friends or your grandma or grandpa or somebody, used blankets, those bed pads that have the egg crate on one side, all good. Now, with the World Team back, and the results obviously very disappointing for the World Team, I think it even opens up the door even more for a more wide variety of types and styles of flying, one of which I like semi-scale planes like my own, or the more conventional type of ships where you're judged for geometry more than excitement. So maybe the event will change a little in the future. We don't know, thanks to the Worlds. We certainly will find out. But next thing I want to do, I want to get out my stack of 16th sheeting. I want to go through it, weigh every piece, and I want to come up with the lightest and straightest pieces for the tail. Now the reason is I always emphasize it's important to have a light tail. It's only up to the point that the tail doesn't flex, bend, twist, warp, or whatever. It doesn't pay to put, let's just make an example, to put on such punky light wood onto the tail that it either folds or breaks or twists, or when you put a little bit of dope on it, it becomes a pretzel. What's important is you got to go through a lot of wood to find enough good wood to make a tail. You usually have to go through 100 sheets. I don't think we have 100 sheets here, but I'm going to go through them all. The first thing I'm going to do is pick out all the straight ones. When I get all the straight ones out, ones that aren't a washboard, then I'll weigh them. And I'll take what I hope are going to be the lightest and straightest, specifically for the tail. The wing, I'm not overly concerned with having the lightest wood in the wing, but the tail, you really would like to strive to have a light and at the same time strong tail. I don't use any spar in the tail and the stab. I don't suggest anybody use a spar. What I suggest instead is the Big Jim method of glassing it 2 or 3 layers in the center. Never seen a tail fold that was glassed properly. Ones with spars, I've seen some break. It's like the lead out thing. It's like flexible lead outs. I've seen planes crash because of, well, Mike Pratt's plane. Flexible lead outs, maybe they work, maybe they don't work. They're maybes. Well, it's the same thing with spars in the wing or tail. They're maybes. Yeah, some don't fold, yeah, some do. But when you glass properly, it never folds. So, and being this is a Monday, Brian and his dad will probably be here, and maybe some more people to work on their the stuff's sitting all over the shop here. So maybe we'll have a good session Monday night, but we would like to get some skins joined up for the stab today, stab and elevators. Now before even bringing the skins over to the table, I want to take my ice scraper. You know, I've been working on this bench and doing painting things and gluing things. I want to get this bench perfectly clean. Step 1 before you do any skins. Get the bench perfectly clean. Before I even get the skins, this is exactly how I got this from Scott Smith. Scott Smith does excellent foam cutting. But I want to mark each one so I know which core, which piece goes back in which core. And you can see how I'm doing this. 1 and 2. That's the way that'll go back. You can actually mark some other way. In fact, we could put some lines on this way. All this does is let you put this piece back in the core when it's ready to be joined. Now I like to use Big Jim's method of joining this. Laying out the sheets, joining the sheets, and doing them all in one piece. I don't know if I've shown that method on before, but that's the method we're going to use. First thing we'll do, we'll put these away for now, get out the skins and weigh them up. What I'm doing, I'm going through my sheeting and just taking out ones that look like they have grain going straight, relatively straight. You sure don't want to just go take, I hold them up to a light and you can see if the grain is straight. Half of these are very light but the grain is crooked. Yeah, it looks like the first straight one we ran into. Another night. I don't know if you can see this up on the video, but when you hold it up to the light, you can see the grain goes straight down the sheet. So I'll do the rest of this off camera. Another point too, when you do a tail, it's nice if you have C grain to do a tail, because there's not a lot of a curve, but in a wing you don't want the leading edge C grain. But if you have it for the elevators, C grain is great for the elevators if you have some. I'll go through this, weigh it all up, and then we'll get out. We need 4 pieces to do a tail. Now I'm just going to weigh these pieces up. They're all about 7 grams. Now what I've done, I've eliminated all these sheets, broke it down to these 2 piles. These 2 sheets are 7 grams. I'd like to make the elevators out of 7s. The little bit ones that are 7.5 grams are a little bit thicker. I'll go through and look for the ones that have the most C grain or the most B grain in there, and they'll be the stab parts. So now I'll be ready to start joining these up. Start cutting edges and joining them up. Now if I measure this real accurately, I can get both pieces. I can get them both out of one sheet. So what I'm going to try to do here, cut the sheets right down the middle, and that'll be my starting point. I'm using a T-square. I want to square off the edge. Now what I have 2 sheets here together. So I want to make sure I'll put the line right on both of them. Now what's nice about using this method is there's really very little waste, and it goes relatively quickly when you want to sheet up a tail. Alright, next step is, where's the old new X-Acto knife? I want to cut both sheets. The other advantage is by using only 2 sheets of wood to do this, what we're going to wind up with is, you know, the 2 best sheets that we have. We'll try to use up those 2 7-grain pieces. Now this might be a little tricky for somebody who doesn't really understand what we're trying to do. What I'm trying to do here is I'm going to measure up a 1/2 inch. A PM tail has 1 inch of rake in it. Alright, sorry for the interruption with the call. You know, President Nixon can't live without me. In fact, he can't live at all anyway. Here's the deal. Now, if I explain this, a PM has 1 inch of taper in it. So we want the sheeting to run parallel to the leading and trailing edges, which means the joint in the middle, which is going to get cut out, we don't need to have a perfect joint. But what I do is I measure up. Since we know it's exactly 1 inch, I measure up a 1/2 inch on one sheet and a 1/2 inch on the other sheet. Again, this doesn't have to be ultra accurate, because this joint is going to get cut out. This is just a reference joint. This allows us to sheet the whole tail in one piece. Now I try to line up the 2 1/2 inch pieces and just leave the back in a V. Okay, and again, remember, this is not ultra critical. With that in mind, I want to connect the dots, and you'll see exactly what happens here. This is a really nice way to sheet a tail. You almost never get a warp when you do it this way. Brand new X-Acto knife. You cut both sheets at the same time. Try to hold the knife 90 degrees up and down. You want to cut both sheets at the same time. Now when you take this apart, you're going to have 2 little pieces here. Pull that piece out from underneath. But what you do have is an edge that should match real good. And you can see, wow, that edge does match pretty goddamn good. And you have these 2 little pieces which are now scrap. And you can see by doing that what a beautiful joint you get right down the whole joint. There's hardly any air showing. It's just a perfect joint. Now you just take some of that masking tape that you haven't been using because it's too sticky to use on pulling paint up, What I try to do is press the sheets together just a little bit. Don't have to go crazy. If you have a helper here, of course, it's nice. Tonight we'll have helpers here. So we'll do the same thing. And Brian's been putting his stuff together, getting the technique down pat. Just want a little bit of pressure on it. Get the tape on it, flatten it right out. Again, this doesn't have to be a totally fussy thing because we're basically gonna cut this out. Turn it over. Now, when it's over, very lightly with some 320 paper, just make some dust. The dust gets into that crack and it kicks this thin CA off almost instantly. Leave the dust right on it. And just take the thinnest bead of CA that you can put on there. The thinner the better. We just want to do a... Now, if you've never done this before, you might want to take some scrap wood. Here's a good idea. Some scrap wood or some old wood that the dust from the paper towel kicks it off. And make up some phony skins, some dummy skins or whatever, just to get the technique down pat before you use up your 2 or 3 best sheets of wood. Now, in this case, what I want to do, because we're going to be referencing off of this line, and we will be removing this line. I want to put a red line down here so I can reference off it. This will be the hinge line part that gets cut out on his tail eventually anyway. And of course, I'll just repeat this for the other skin. Pull off the tape and you'll have his skins. Okay, we have 2 skins now. Now, before we do any sanding, you want to make sure you have both sides nice and smooth. You want to make sure you get the tape off. Don't sand this with the tape on. And the lightest of sanding, the lightest. You don't want to have a big giant sanding going on here. The lightest little amount. And then what we're going to do is take compressed air or a brush and get all the dust off. You don't want to turn this sheeting into into paper right now, and whenever you flip this over, get rid of all the dust. If you haven't seen that video that Scott Smith and I made on sheeting wings, that's an excellent one. He shows his method, and there is nothing at all wrong with his method. This is only the method and the little variation of it that Big Jim kind of came up with. Now, just want to feel around, make sure you don't have any big gings or anything in there, any splits in the wood. And that's pretty much ready to go now. Get rid of all these little pieces that we cut out. Just break them up and get rid of them. Now once you get a nicely sanded surface here, smooth, you might even want to use 400 paper on this. Real important to get all the dust off. You have choices here. Vacuuming is okay, but be careful you don't break the sheet. These get delicate after you sand them. The method I like, I take my air compressor and put on an air chuck, and I can take them outside, take them out in the backyard. You don't want to do it in here. You're breathing enough junk in here as it is. And just blow the dust off with gentle air pressure. I like to sand both sides. Make sure, now see, even after I scrape the table, from doing the sheeting, I guess I got a little bit on there. Constantly watch that you don't have little things on that table. And watch that, if you're new to this, if this is all new to you, check that Scott Smith video out. That is an excellent information on there. One thing you'll notice on that video is how many times we vacuum and clean the table. Because you want these wing skins, once they go on, you want to do a minimum of sanding. You don't want to go into sanding mode and all of a sudden what happens is you sand through the edges and the corners and everything. The minimum amount of sanding. You want to get as much sanding done and make them perfect at this stage of the game. Okay, now we have 2 relatively nice skins here anyway. Now, what we're going to need to do obviously is go make up 2 more. We'll do those off camera. This will be for one side of the tail. We'll do the other side of the tail. I'm just going to be redundant, repeat this off camera, and we'll be all set to start sheeting up this wing. Again, real important to keep little mountains of dust off the table. You have to, when you're doing wing skins or tail skins, whatever, perfectly clean table is so important, so important. If you don't have an air compressor with an air chuck, another good way of doing this is you can take a vacuum cleaner and just reverse the pressure so it's blowing. Almost every vacuum cleaner has that option. But you want to get, here's the thing you're looking for. You want the skins to have no dust on them at all, and when we finish sanding the cores, no dust on them at all. So that when you put the spray glue, you're not spraying over all this dust on both sides. You want no dust at all, sanding dust or foam dust, when you actually get ready to glue. Now here's one of these little tips that's worth its weight in gold. You can see we have about 5, 6 other sheets here. We don't want to take a sheet, even though this is a light, straight sheet. See how it has these brown spots in it? Usually that means it's good wood and everything, but what's going to happen when you go to finish this, where these spots are, you'll see whoosh, dope will go in there like a sponge. So right now, because we have other sheets, we want to pick out the 2 of the straightest sheets, go through here. This one looks kind of mediocre. This one is almost perfect, so we'll put this one aside. Look down here. Selecting this wood out is really, now see, this thing you don't want to have, because what happens up here is you have one side of the wood that's real hard, and as you get down here it's all stringy and, you know, it's nice and straight, but up here you have that big, I don't know what you call it, like a pine, knotty pine look. This is a good piece that has one check in it. So we have one here that has very little checking in it. So we have 2 pieces here. We'll pick those 2 out. And we'll just repeat the old procedure. We're just going to, in no sense doing it on camera, we want to wind up with, of course, 4 sanded, ready to go wing skins, and then we'll be ready to move on to sanding the cores. Now the easiest way to keep this separate, of course, is take half out, work on half at a time, put the other half away. If you work on half a tail, you won't wind up with the wrong piece and the wrong core or whatever. Flip these over, and you know you can always get these back the right way with the reference lines. And one of the things we want to do is just lightly block sand this out. 400 sandpaper, very lightly block it out, and then of course blow off the dust. The most important thing we're going to do contact cement on this, but blow off the dust. Get each side sanded to where you see the minimum amount of, now we're not trying to change the shape of this, we're just trying to get a smooth surface for the glue to stick to. Try to hold it on a flat table if you can. This is about how long I would be sanding each side. Now on the macro lens, this is an unsanded side. You can see there's a lot of dust, all these little valleys fill up with dust. This side is sanded. You can see the valleys are much smaller. You're never going to sand it so there's no valleys. Don't keep sanding it. Just get a nice smooth as possible surface on there by block sand. And then of course the most important thing, blow off with air all of the garbage. Now, I always blow these off outside. Again, if you don't have an air chuck for your compressor, try to blow out all the little holes in here. Blow off all the sheeting out here. Now you'll notice one thing we've done, I marked the hinge line, and this is 1/8 of an inch further forward on the new PM. This is an update to the PMs that have 4 to 5 controls. The elevators are 1/8 of an inch bigger, and the stab is 1/8 of an inch smaller, so we've taken that into account when we referenced off Scotty's lines. In other words, the elevators are 3 5/8, and this is 3 3/8. Of course, the taper is equal. So that's an important thing. If you're going to build the updated new Cardinal PM, move the hinge line forward 1/8 of an inch. And now we want the table super clean. What we're going to do, I'll go outside, I'll spray the spray glue. Another tip, never spray glue inside. The smell just gets, even by my standards, it's unbelievable. Now, we're going to use 3M77 cement. We've already done tests on 90 and on 77, and it melts the foam. The only cement you want to use is 3M77. If you can't find this locally, I'll pick up a can for you here, or the stuff Sig sells is in, it's 10 bucks and it's in a smaller can than the big. If you buy it locally, a good place is Home Depot, Channel Lumber, they all seem to carry it. But make sure it's number 77, not 77N or 90. Even though the cans look identical, bingo, you're out of business. This is what you're looking for, number 77. Again, if you can't find it anyplace else, I'll pick up a can at Home Depot and mail it to you. But keep in mind, 77, there is a can that looks exactly like this, and this number is 90. Bingo,